Sometimes in life, you reach a moment where everything feels blurry. You feel like the world is moving forward, but somehow you're stuck in the same place. You look at others achieving their goals, becoming stronger, moving ahead, and you ask yourself, why am I not able to do the same? What's wrong with me? Why can't I focus like everyone else? But the truth is, there is nothing wrong with you. You are simply fighting a battle that no one else can see, the battle inside your own mind. This is the story of a young man who was just like you. A young man who had dreams, hopes, ambitions, and a fire inside him, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't concentrate on anything. His books remained open, but his mind wandered. His goals were clear, but his path was foggy. He wanted to succeed, but something inside kept pulling him back. And the more he tried, the more disappointed he felt. He believed he was the only one struggling. He believed he was the only one who couldn't control his mind. One day, tired and frustrated, he walked up to his teacher, a teacher known not for strictness, but for wisdom. The kind of teacher who didn't just teach lessons, but transformed lives. The young man stood in front of him and said, "Sir, I try to study every day. I try to focus. I try to stay disciplined. But my mind doesn't listen. It keeps running away. I sit with my books, but my thoughts scatter everywhere. I don't know what to do anymore." The teacher looked at him, smiled gently, and said, "Sit down." The boy sat, expecting a lecture or maybe some scolding. But the teacher stayed silent for a moment, as if listening to the quiet around them. And then he said something the boy would never forget. "You think your mind is your enemy," the teacher said softly. "But your mind is only a child, undisciplined, curious, restless, easily distracted. And just like a child, your mind needs guidance, not frustration, understanding, not anger, patience, not pressure." The young man frowned. "But how do I guide my mind? How do I stop it from wandering?" The teacher raised one finger. "First, understand this: you cannot control your mind by force. You control it through understanding. A mind forced into discipline becomes rebellious. A mind guided with awareness becomes focused." And then the teacher stood up and walked toward the window. Outside, the wind was blowing softly, moving the leaves of a large old tree. "Look at that tree," he said. "It stands tall, strong, peaceful, but only because its roots go deep into the earth. Your focus is the same. It becomes strong only when your mind is deeply rooted. And today, I will teach you how to plant those roots." The boy looked at him curiously, waiting for the lesson that would change his life forever. The teacher took a deep breath and began the first lesson. "Calmness," he said, "is your foundation. A noisy mind cannot focus. A restless heart cannot learn. And a stressed soul cannot grow. You think your problem is distraction, but your real problem is that you're too overwhelmed. You're fighting your thoughts instead of understanding them. So before you try to focus, learn to calm your mind." The boy asked, "How do I calm my mind?" The teacher picked up a cup of water and stirred it with a spoon, making the water swirl. "When the water is disturbed," he said, "you cannot see your reflection. But when it becomes still, everything becomes clear. Your mind is the same. Calmness is not the absence of thoughts. It is the ability to let thoughts come and go without losing yourself in them." He continued, "Sit for 5 minutes every day. Don't try to stop your thoughts. Just breathe. Let your mind settle. Slowly, the noise will fade. Peace will come. And when your mind becomes calm, your focus will begin to wake up." The young man listened quietly. The teacher smiled and began the second lesson. "Focus," he said, "is not something you search for. It is something you build. Slow and steady, brick by brick. You do not suddenly become focused one morning. You create focus through habit, through repetition, through practice. When you sit down to study, your mind will try to run. That is natural. Let it run. Then gently bring it back. Again and again. Every time you bring your mind back, you strengthen the muscle of focus." "It feels impossible," the boy whispered. "All great things feel impossible at first," the teacher replied. "But remember this: even a drop of water can break a mountain when it falls repeatedly. So don't worry about how many times your mind wanders. Focus on how many times you bring it back. That is where your power lies." The boy slowly nodded. His heart felt lighter already. The teacher moved on to the third lesson, understanding. You misunderstand your mind, he said. You think distraction is your weakness. But distraction is simply your mind searching for stimulation. The human mind hates boredom. When you focus on something meaningless or confusing, your mind runs away. Not because you're lazy, but because you haven't made your purpose clear. He looked deeply into the boy's eyes. Do you know why you're studying? Not in general, but truly. What is your goal? What is your dream? What future do you want? If you aren't clear, your mind will never obey you. The boy hesitated. He had dreams, yes. But they were blurred, half-formed thoughts at the back of his mind. The teacher continued, sit alone and ask yourself, who do I want to become? What do I want to achieve? What kind of life do I want to build? When your purpose becomes clear, your mind will find focus naturally. Purpose gives direction. Direction gives discipline. Discipline creates success. The boy absorbed every word as if the teacher was lighting lamps in a dark room inside him. The teacher then shared the fourth lesson, small habits. You are trying to change your whole life in one day, he said. That is why you fail. Success does not come from huge efforts, it comes from small habits done consistently. Read 10 pages every day. Practice 1 chapter a day. Focus for 20 minutes, then rest. Build your habits slowly, build them wisely, and build them daily. The boy asked, but will small habits truly change me? The teacher nodded. A forest grows from tiny seeds. A river begins with a single drop. And a great mind is built one small habit at a time. Finally, the teacher spoke the fifth lesson, consistency. You don't need to be perfect, he said. You just need to be consistent. Even if you study for only an hour a day, do it every day. Even if you improve by 1% daily, that 1% will transform your life. Remember, the greatest power in the world is not strength, it is consistency. The boy felt something shift inside him. A spark, a new kind of hope. The teacher placed a hand on his shoulder. Don't give up on yourself, he said. You are not weak. You are not incapable. You are simply learning how to guide your mind. And once you master that, there is nothing in this world you cannot achieve. And from that day on, the boy's life changed. Not overnight, not magically, but steadily, consistently, deeply. Because he finally realized that the greatest battle is not in the world outside. It is the one happening inside your own mind. And once you learn to master your mind, you master your life. As the young man walked back to his room after speaking to the teacher, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time, clarity. The air felt lighter, his mind felt quieter, and his heart felt strangely hopeful. For the first time, he understood that mastering the mind was not a talent, it was a process. And that process had just begun. He sat at his desk, opened his books, and instead of forcing himself to focus, he simply took a deep breath, just like the teacher said. For a moment, he didn't try to study. He didn't try to control anything. He just breathed, and in that simple act, he realized something powerful. The mind becomes calm when you stop fighting it. He looked at the pages. Words that once felt heavy now felt manageable. Thoughts that once scattered now felt slower. The noise inside him had softened. And even though he didn't become perfectly focused that day, he became calmer, and that was the first victory. Over the next few days, the young man started practicing the lessons one by one. He didn't make huge changes. He didn't try to become a new person in a single night. He simply worked on small, steady improvements. And slowly, life started shifting. Every morning, he spent 5 minutes just breathing. At first, his mind wandered. It ran to yesterday's memories, tomorrow's worries, random thoughts. But instead of getting frustrated, he remembered the teacher's words, a mind forced into silence becomes louder. A mind allowed to settle becomes peaceful. So he let the thoughts come and go, like clouds drifting across the sky. Slowly, a quietness emerged inside him, gentle, grounding, and real. One evening, as he sat in the school library, he realized something surprising. He was studying without forcing himself. He wasn't fighting the book. He wasn't fighting his mind. He wasn't fighting the world. His focus wasn't perfect, but it was growing. And for the first time, he felt proud of himself. But the journey of mastering the mind is never a straight line. And soon, the young man faced the challenge every person faces, the return of old habits. One afternoon, while studying, he found himself drifting back into distraction. He picked up his phone, scrolled mindlessly, wasted time, and felt the old guilt return. The familiar voice inside him whispered, "See, you will never change. You always fail. You're not disciplined." It hurt. It discouraged him. And for a moment, he felt like giving up again. But then, he remembered something the teacher had said. Consistency is not about never falling. It's about always rising. He closed his eyes and whispered to himself, "This is just a moment. Not my identity." With a steady breath, he put the phone aside and went back to his books. That tiny act, that single moment of choosing discipline over doubt, became a turning point. Because change never comes from perfection, it comes from persistence. As days turned into weeks, the young man's confidence began to grow. Not because he had become a genius overnight, but because he finally believed he could grow. That belief is powerful. More powerful than motivation, more powerful than talent, more powerful than intelligence. One day, he returned to the teacher and said, "Sir, I'm improving, but sometimes my mind still feels weak. Sometimes I feel lost. Sometimes I feel like nothing is changing." The teacher nodded gently. "That is because you're looking at the surface. You are judging your growth too quickly. Real transformation happens slowly, quietly, beneath the surface, just like seeds growing underground. You may not see the progress immediately, but the roots are forming." The young man listened closely. The teacher continued, "There will be days when you feel strong, and days when you feel weak. Days when you can focus for hours, and days when even 10 minutes feel impossible. But remember, discipline is not built on good days. It is built on the bad days. The days when your mind is tired. The days when you don't feel motivated. The days when everything feels heavy. Those are the days when consistency matters most." The boy nodded. Something inside him shifted again. The teacher picked up a small stone from the table and handed it to the boy. "Hold this," he said. The boy held the stone. "Do you know how mountains are formed?" The teacher asked. "Not in a day, not by a storm. They are formed over millions of years by pressure, persistence, and patience. The same forces shape a strong mind." The teacher then said something the boy would never forget. "You want to master your mind. But first, you must stop expecting yourself to change instantly. The greatest mistake people make is thinking transformation should be fast. No, true growth is slow. True mastery is patient. True discipline is built like mountains, with time." The young man went home thinking about that stone for a long time. And slowly, he began to understand. He stopped expecting perfection. He stopped judging himself harshly. He stopped comparing himself to others. And the less pressure he placed on himself, the more naturally his mind became disciplined. One evening, while sitting outside under the warm glow of the sunset, he looked up at the sky and realized something profound. The world wasn't against him. His thoughts weren't against him. Life wasn't trying to make him fail. The only battle he had been losing was the one he was creating inside his own head. He whispered to himself, "If I can master my thoughts, I can master my life." And he decided, once again, to keep going. With time, his habits grew stronger. His focus became sharper. His distractions lost their power. His mind slowly transformed into his greatest supporter instead of his greatest obstacle. He started waking up earlier. He started reading more. He started being more disciplined. Not because he was forcing himself, but because he understood himself. One day, while helping his younger cousin with homework, the boy found himself repeating the same lessons his teacher had taught him. And in that moment, he realized something beautiful. Wisdom grows when you share it. "You can't force your mind," he told his cousin. "You have to guide it. You have to be patient with it. You have to let it grow." As he said these words, he felt a certain peace inside him, a peace that only comes when you finally step into the person you were meant to become. But his journey wasn't over. A few weeks later, he returned to the teacher again. This time not with frustration, but with curiosity. "Sir," he said, "you taught me calmness, focus, understanding, habits, and consistency. But is that all? Is there nothing more to mastering the mind?" The teacher smiled mysteriously. "There is one more thing," he said. The most important lesson of all. But before I tell you, you must answer a question. The boy nodded. What question? The teacher looked directly into his eyes and asked. Why do you want to master your mind? The boy froze. He hadn't expected that. He had been so focused on improving, so focused on changing, so focused on getting better, that he had never truly asked himself why. He thought for a moment. Was it to get good grades? Was it to impress others? Was it to feel successful? Was it to stop feeling guilty? After a long silence, he answered softly, I don't know. The teacher nodded. That is why you still feel lost sometimes. Because you are mastering your mind without knowing your purpose. Purpose is the compass of the mind. Without purpose, the mind wanders. With purpose, the mind aligns. The teacher leaned forward and said, you don't need to master your mind to become perfect. You need to master it to become yourself. To build the life you want. To grow into the person you are meant to be. The boy listened silently, feeling something awaken inside him. The teacher continued, ask yourself, what do you truly want? Not what others expect from you. Not what society says. Not what your friends think. What you want. Because once you know your true purpose, the mind stops resisting. It starts cooperating, and that is when transformation becomes effortless. The boy spent the next few days reflecting on that question. And slowly, he began uncovering his true dreams. Not the dreams he repeated to others, but the ones he kept hidden even from himself. And when he discovered his purpose, truly discovered it, something extraordinary happened. His mind aligned, his energy aligned, his focus aligned, everything suddenly made sense. He understood the final truth. The mind does not become powerful through force. It becomes powerful through purpose. And from that day forward, his journey transformed into something deeper, something greater, something far more meaningful. Because he finally knew what he was fighting for. The discovery of his purpose did not arrive like lightning. It didn't explode into his life with fireworks or dramatic clarity. It came quietly, gently, like the soft glow of dawn that slowly pushes away the darkness. At first, he didn't even realize what was happening. But one morning, while writing in his notebook, he found himself describing a life he had always wished for but never dared to imagine. It wasn't about fame, or money, or success in the eyes of others. It was about becoming a person he could respect. A person with discipline. A person with strength. A person with depth. A person who could look into the mirror without guilt or doubt. That was his real dream, a dream far greater than good grades, achievements, or any material goal. The moment he understood this, everything inside him shifted. For the first time in his life, his attempts at discipline didn't feel like a burden. They felt like a path. His effort didn't feel forced. It felt meaningful. His daily routine no longer felt like a struggle. It felt like a journey. And with that understanding, the teacher's lessons began to take on a new power. The young man started waking up every day not with pressure, but with purpose. Not with fear of failure, but with excitement for progress. Even when he felt tired, even when he didn't feel motivated, something inside him whispered, this is who you want to be. And that whisper was enough to guide him. One day, he sat with the teacher again, and this time his face carried a calm confidence. Sir, he said, I know my purpose now. I know what I want from myself. The teacher looked at him with a proud smile. Good. Then you are ready for the final lesson. The young man leaned forward with curiosity. What is it? The teacher didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked toward a small wooden box on a shelf, opened it, and took out a candle and a matchbox. He placed both on the table between them. Light the candle, the teacher said. The boy lit it, the flame dancing softly in the quiet room. The teacher asked, what do you see? A flame, the boy replied. Look closer. The boy leaned in. It flickers. Yes, the teacher said. Why? Because of the air around it. The teacher nodded. Now put your hand around it lightly, not touching the flame, but shielding it. The boy cupped his hand around the flame. Suddenly, the flame steadied. It became calm, tall, and bright. The teacher smiled. That, he said softly, is the final lesson. Protection. The boy looked confused. Protection. Yes, the teacher replied. You have calmness. You have focus. You understand your mind. You are building habits. You are becoming consistent. You have discovered your purpose. But there is one more thing you must learn: how to protect your mind. The boy listened closely. The teacher continued, just like this flame, your focus can flicker because of the world around you. Distractions, negativity, toxic people, noise, stress, these winds can make your mind unsteady. To grow into the person you want to become, you must protect your inner flame. The boy slowly nodded. How do I protect it? The teacher smiled. Through boundaries. He continued, you must learn when to say no. You must learn to distance yourself from people who drain your energy. You must stop allowing your mind to be controlled by noise, social media, unnecessary worries, and meaningless opinions. You must protect your peace as if it is the most valuable treasure you own, because it is. The boy absorbed the words deeply. Your purpose, the teacher said, is the flame. Your habits are the fuel. Your focus shapes the fire. But your boundaries protect the flame from dying. The boy sat quietly, understanding the weight of the lesson. Over the next few weeks, he put this final lesson into practice. He cut down the time he spent on meaningless distractions. He stopped comparing himself to others. He limited his time with people who only complained or discouraged him. He chose quiet over chaos. He chose simplicity over noise. He chose depth over distraction. And slowly, something extraordinary began to happen. His mind became clear. His thoughts became sharper. His actions became intentional. His days felt lighter. His nights felt peaceful. One evening, while sitting alone and watching the sunset, he realized that he no longer hated silence. Silence had become his friend, his safe place, his power. Every day began to feel meaningful, even when nothing special happened. Every small step felt like progress, even on slow days. Every moment of discipline felt like a victory. And every time he protected his peace, he felt his inner flame grow stronger. One day, while walking through the school courtyard, he noticed another student sitting alone, looking frustrated, the same way he once looked. The boy hesitated at first, but something inside urged him forward. He sat beside the student and said, "Are you okay?" The student sighed. "No, I can't focus. I'm trying, but my mind keeps wandering. I don't know what's wrong with me." The young man smiled gently, the same way his teacher once smiled at him. "Nothing is wrong with you," he said. "Your mind just needs guidance." The student looked up, surprised. "How do I guide it?" he asked. The young man thought of the teacher's lessons: calmness, focus, understanding, small habits, consistency, purpose, protection, and realized that he now carried these lessons within him. "Let me tell you a story," he said. And in that moment, something incredible happened. The student who once felt lost had become a guide for someone else. The boy who once had no discipline had become a source of wisdom. The mind that once wandered without direction had become a source of strength. As he shared the lessons, he felt something powerful bloom inside him: growth. Not the loud kind, not the dramatic kind, but the deep, quiet kind that changes a person forever. Later that day, when he returned to the teacher simply asked, "How does it feel?" The boy smiled. "It feels peaceful." The teacher nodded knowingly. "That is the true sign of mastery," he said. "Not perfection, not control, not even success. Peace. When the mind becomes your ally instead of your enemy, when your heart becomes calm instead of chaotic, when your actions align with your purpose, that is the beginning of a powerful life." For the first time, the boy fully understood. Mastering the mind wasn't about becoming flawless. It wasn't about never getting distracted. It wasn't about becoming the best among others. It was about becoming the best version of yourself. It was about finding peace in your own thoughts. It was about walking your path with clarity. It was about protecting your flame and letting it grow. And so, the boy promised himself one thing. No matter how hard life becomes, no matter how loud the world grows, I will not give up on myself again. I will protect my purpose. I will nurture my mind. I will keep going. He finally understood what the teacher meant from the very beginning. Don't give up on yourself. You are not weak. You are just learning. And with that understanding, he stepped into the next chapter of his life. Stronger, calmer, wiser, and ready to shape his own destiny. As days turned into months, the young man's transformation became visible not only to himself but to everyone around him. Teachers noticed he was more present in class. His friends observed that he no longer complained, no longer panicked, no longer felt lost the way he once did. His family saw a subtle yet powerful change in his behavior, a calm confidence, a disciplined routine, a focused mind. But more important than what others saw was what he began to feel within himself. He felt grounded. He felt centered. He felt aligned. For the first time in his life, he felt like he was living with intention instead of drifting through each day. But life, as always, has a way of testing you the moment you begin to grow. And soon, a new challenge arrived, a challenge that would test everything he had learned. It happened one morning during exam season. The pressure was high, the expectations heavier than ever. Everyone around him was studying for long hours, pushing themselves to the edge. Fear and competition filled the air. He woke up feeling anxious, something he hadn't felt in a long time. His mind, once calm and steady, began to feel unsettled again. Questions and doubts swirled in his head. What if I'm not prepared enough? What if I forget everything? What if I fail? He sat down at his desk, opened his books, and tried to focus, but nothing made sense. The words blurred. The concepts felt distant. His thoughts grew louder. For a moment, he felt like the old version of himself. Fear whispered, "You haven't changed. You're still the same." Doubt whispered, "You're not disciplined enough." Pressure whispered, "You're not ready." His heart began to race. His palms grew sweaty. It felt like a storm inside him was beginning again. But then, he closed his eyes. He took a deep breath. And he remembered the candle. He remembered how the flame shook because of the wind. He remembered how it became calm when protected. And he realized, the storm wasn't around him. It was inside him. He whispered the words he once heard from his teacher. Calmness is your foundation. And slowly, he allowed himself to breathe. He allowed the anxiety to pass through him instead of fighting it. He allowed his thoughts to settle like dust falling to the ground. Little by little, the storm softened. After a few minutes, he opened his eyes. His heart was steady again. His mind clearer. His purpose back in place. The flame inside him, once flickering, was once again stable. He began studying again. Slowly, calmly, intentionally. Not to prove anything to anyone, but to honor the person he was becoming. That evening, he visited the teacher and said, "Sir, today I almost lost control again. I almost fell back into my old habits." The teacher smiled gently. "That is normal. Growth is not a straight line. Even the strongest mind shakes sometimes. Even the calmest heart trembles. Even the brightest flame flickers." The boy nodded, listening. "But remember," the teacher continued, "the goal is not to never break. The goal is to recover faster each time. Earlier, it took you days to bring your mind back. Today, it took minutes. That is progress. That is mastery." The boy felt a deep sense of relief wash over him. "Do you know," the teacher said, "why storms exist inside the mind?" The young man shook his head. The teacher answered, "Because your mind is trying to protect you. Fear warns you. Doubt challenges you. Anxiety prepares you. But when you learn to guide these feelings instead of obeying them blindly, you become stronger." The boy whispered, "So the storm wasn't the enemy?" "No," the teacher replied softly. "The storm was your teacher." The boy sat there silently, absorbing every word like a seed absorbing sunlight. In the weeks that followed, he continued applying every lesson. Calmness when overwhelmed. Focus when distracted. Understanding when confused. Small habits when lazy. Consistency when tired. Purpose when lost. Protection when threatened. And soon, something deeper began to awaken inside him, self-respect. He no longer felt ashamed of his past mistakes. He no longer hated his struggles. He no longer compared himself to others. Instead, he looked back and saw how far he had come. He realized that every wrong turn, every failure, every moment of confusion, they were all lessons. They were all shaping him. One night, while walking home after studying late in the library, he found himself staring at the stars. There was a stillness in the sky that matched the stillness inside him. He whispered to himself, "I'm finally becoming the person I once needed." But life had one more lesson for him, a lesson that would show him how much he had truly changed. A few days later, a major exam result was announced. Students rushed around anxiously. Some cried, some celebrated, some panicked. The young man opened his results slowly, his hands steady, his heart calm. He didn't top the class. He didn't fail either. He was somewhere in the middle, but instead of disappointment, he felt something unexpected. He felt proud, not because of the marks, not because of the result, but because he knew he had given his best. Because he knew he had grown. Because he knew the person he had become was far more important than the grades he received. That evening, he visited the teacher again, not with questions, but with gratitude. "Sir," he said softly, "I didn't top the exam. But for the first time, I don't feel like a failure." The teacher smiled warmly. "That is because success is not measured by results. It is measured by growth. And you, my boy, have grown more than you realize." The boy felt his eyes sting with emotion. "You have mastered something far more powerful than subjects," the teacher said. "You have mastered yourself. And when a person masters themselves, no failure can break them, no success can blind them, and no challenge can stop them." The young man inhaled deeply, feeling those words settle into his heart like truth he had been waiting for. "Sir," he asked, "will I ever stop facing challenges? Will my mind ever become perfectly stable?" The teacher shook his head. "No, and that is a good thing. A mind without challenges becomes weak. A journey without obstacles becomes empty. The goal is not to avoid difficulties, it is to become stronger than them." He continued, "A calm mind is not a mind without thoughts. A focused mind is not a mind without distractions. A disciplined mind is not a mind without temptation. It is a mind that knows how to return to its purpose again and again." The young man smiled. He finally understood deeply. That night, as he walked home under the dim glow of the streetlights, he felt an overwhelming sense of peace. Not because his life was perfect, it wasn't. Not because his mind was flawless, it wasn't. He felt peace because he had learned something life-changing. He didn't need to control everything. He didn't need to be perfect. He didn't need to rush. He didn't need to prove anything. He just needed to keep going. And that simple realization became the strongest foundation of his life. With every passing day, his confidence grew, not the loud kind that demands attention, but the quiet kind that radiates from within. The kind that comes from discipline, clarity, purpose, and peace. He used to fear challenges. Now he welcomed them. He used to drown in distractions. Now he guided his mind like a steady hand guiding a young flame. He used to feel lost. Now he felt rooted. In himself, in his purpose, in his journey. The boy who once doubted every step was now walking forward with intention. And little did he know, his greatest transformation was still ahead.